You opened this video because Slavic myths feel like a puzzle with missing pieces. You're right. The sources are scattered, temples burned, and the gods seem to change names from one village to the next. What if the key is a single, invisible war? Stay with me. When Perun, the Thunderlord, hunts Veles, the serpent of the underworld, every tale snaps into place. The seasons, the harvest, the world tree itself. By the end, you'll read Mokosh, Domovoi, and Svetovid not as random deities, but as players on one cosmic board. Ever try to tune into Slavic myth and only hear static? Different gods, different names, no clear canon. You're not wrong. The dial crackles because the old stories don't come from a single book or one fixed choir. They come from many mouths across a wide land, each village with its own vowels, each shrine with its own rhythm, all playing at once. So, here's the core snag. Greek tales flow from epics, Norse tales lean on the Eddas. With the Slavs, there's no master text to steady your hand. There's no one scroll that says, this is the order, this is the caste, these are the rites. What we have are shards, some carved, some sung, some noted by passers-by who did not share the faith. When you read them side by side, you can feel the drift. That drift breeds debate. In one region, thunder holds the highest seat. In another, a four-faced lord stands at the center. Elsewhere, a three-headed power frames the horizon. The same roles show up with new faces, and the same faces switch jobs depending on who is telling the tale. Add local cults. One island loves its oracle statue, one valley guards a hilltop oak, and the map looks busy and crooked at once. Why does it sprawl like this? The people carried their myth by voice and rite. Songs moved with travelers and traders. Elders taught at the fire, not on parchment. East, West, and South Slavs shared roots, yet climate, warpaths, and neighbors nudged their stories apart. In some places, you found a timber temple with carved posts and strict entry. In others, a grove with no walls, where the wind cut the rites and the idol sat under leaves. Both were sacred, but they shaped memory in different ways. The written notes we do have often come from outside. Observers wrote from court or cloister, not from a shrine floor. They saw processions, tall statues, horse lots, and fires. They guessed at the rest. When they came hostile to the rites, they trimmed, mocked, or framed the gods as foes. When they came friendly, they still heard the chant through a filter, because they didn't live the cycle day to day. So the page we read is slanted before we even turn it. Think of it like a radio on a road trip. You keep the same song, but as you cross a ridge, the verses swap. A chorus swells in one town, a drum line takes over in the next. The melody is steady, yet the sound is never the same twice. That's the feel of Slavic myth. One tune, many stations. If you expect one clean track, the static will wear you down. If you know it's a patchwork broadcast, you can enjoy the changes and still follow the beat. Even so, there are anchors. A tall stone from the past shows stacked worlds and figures set in rows. Its faces look out to the four sides, and its levels march from the ground to the sky. You can see a shared frame in that shape, a sense that the world has tiers, that powers sit in places, that the center holds. Multi-faced idols and tiered images recur across finds, hinting at a common plan behind the local paint. This is where the noise starts to thin. Once you stop chasing perfect names and start asking what each figure does, patterns appear. Storm has a seat. Waters and wealth keep to the deep law shines from above. Growth and care sit at the hearth. The same jobs recur, even when the roster swaps masks. What this means for us is simple. We sort by function and place. not by a rigid roll call, and the static clears a little. The confusion you feel is not a flaw of the myths. It is the shadow of how they lived, sung, danced, planted, and poured. In a world like that, the canon is the calendar, and the field's rites taught the code. The year marked the tale. When recorders only caught a day here, or a festival there, the page kept only a slice. That's why our sources look jagged, but also oddly familiar. They're fragments of one living pattern. So, yes, the names shift. Yes, regions favor their own faces. But underneath, a simple engine hums. You can trace it in weather, in harvest rites, in house charms, in ancestor days. You can trace it in the way idols point to the four winds and stack the worlds like floors of a house. Once you hear that engine, the static becomes texture, not chaos. There is a signal under the crackle. It orders sky, soil, and souls with one recurring move. And if we want to hear it clean, we need to learn who turned the knobs and why the stations drifted out of sync. Now let's see what scrambled the dial and scattered the stations. If the myths once formed a mirror, who cracked it and why? The break came with a new creed backed by rulers, laws, and steel. When mass baptisms swept through riverbanks and town squares, the old rites lost their public stage. Temples were pulled down or set to fire. Idols fell, sometimes dragged to gates or burned before crowds, a clear signal that the old pacts with the gods were now off the books. Policy turned the screw. Power favored one altar and one calendar. Public cults gave way to church feasts and sanctioned processions. The old keepers of rites, the Volkvi, faced expulsion, trial, or worse. When those voices dimmed, a web of memory thinned. Major sanctuaries went silent after raids and forced surrenders. One stronghold by the sea, famed for a four-faced idol, was taken and stripped, its image thrown down under the eye of new authority. The message was blunt. The stage had changed. This hit the core of mythic memory. A living tradition needs places where song, law, and feast meet. Knock out the center, and the tune breaks into parts. People still knew the words, but they could not sing them loud in the square. They took them home. The rites slipped into barns, kitchens, and fields. The same cycle moved, but in a low key. Instead of temple drama, you got household marks, small offerings, and stories told as if they were mere custom. So, the tales went underground. They lived in folk ritual, in fires lit at the edge of a village, in masked dances, in the soaking and burning of straw figures at the turn of a season. They turned up in apocryphal tales, where angels and saints walked paths once trod by gods. The language changed, yet the work stayed. Rain, growth, luck, and safe birth still mattered. People spoke to the sky, the soil, and the river, only now through new names. Saints began to wear old jobs. Perun's storm path aligned with a thunderous prophet. His season, his sound, even the habit of calling for rain or safety from lightning, moved under that halo Veles' care of herds, and the deep linked to a saint known for guarding cattle and healing. Mokosh's sheltering hand and bond with moisture leaned toward the Marian mantle. The calendar followed suit. Festivals kept their old timing and core gestures, now rephrased with church language. Fires still leapt at midsummer. Water rites still cooled heat. Ancestors still received food and memory when frost lay on fields. The faces on the icons were new, but the clock was familiar. What this means is that the outcome wasn't a clean erasure. It was layering. Think of a palimpsest, a scraped page written on again. The old ink shows through the new script when the light hits just right. You read both at once. That is Domovoi, double faith. where village life keeps the cycle while also standing at the nave on feast days. People learned two vocabularies for the same needs and moved easily between them. For example, a community might attend liturgy in the morning, then circle fields sunwise in the afternoon, blessing furrows and wells. The chant names saints, yet the steps trace the arc of the year that long predates the sermon. The tension between storm and storehouse returns as fire and water games, as river plunges and bonfire leaps. Spring and summer rites stage the shift of spirits with effigies that drown or burn, wheels of straw flaring as they roll downhill toward a stream. The acts look simple, yet they carry an old code. Because of this layering, the original frame hides in plain sight. To an outside observer, the pieces look like quaint custom or scattered superstition. Without the old temple staff to say the lines aloud, the plot lives in habit and timing. A saint's day lands on a node of the old calendar. A house charm echoes a rite of the grove. A folk prayer asks for rain with phrases from scripture, but it rides the same need the thunder god once answered. You see fragments, you sense a pattern. It feels familiar and strange at once. The breakage matters, then, not only for what was torn down, but for how the parts fused. Public power favored one system, yet the countryside kept farming, marrying, burying, and hoping on the same land. The cycle could not vanish because the year kept turning and mouths still needed bread. So the myth moved into the grain of life. It hid in safekeeping roles and in small rites at thresholds, in the hush before a storm, in a mother's beadwork, in the bend of a procession. This is why our sources look fragmented, yet ring with echoes. They're merged, not erased. Once you know to look for the double script, the blur clears. You can read the saint's title and the older work beneath it. You can track the festival by its gesture rather than its name. With the edges mapped, we can search for the simple engine at the center. What if one chase scene explains the weather, the harvest, and the fate of souls? In the old stories, two forces lock eyes and never blink. One stands on the heights and speaks in thunder. The other coils in root and river, counting herds and hoarding luck. Their run and pursuit sets the sky, waters, and even our end beyond the gate. We start with the names because they carry the work. Perun rules the high places. He is thunder and lightning, the charge that splits cloud and oak, the keeper of law and the edge of war. Veles holds the low country. He is serpent and shepherd, lord of the underworld and the cattle that feed wealth. When we say underworld here, think of depth rather than a distant hell. Soil, storehouse, the quiet where both treasure and the dead lie. Between them lies the field where we all live. Perun stands for order. Veles moves with craft. One writes rules in clear strokes. The other bends lines with charm and secret paths. Sky to root, law to magic. They are not crude good and evil. They are two poles that make a world. They pull against each other, and that pull keeps the wheel from stalling. The most common move is theft. Veles slips from the deep to steal from the sky. Cattle, wealth, even souls that belong above. He shifts shape as he goes. Serpent in grass, wolf in fog, bull in the mist. Perun sees the loss, calls the order broken, and gives chase. Lightning is not a random blaze in this view. It is a spear, an arrow, a bolt sent down the trunk of the world to mark a thief. Storms unfold like a hunt. First comes stillness, the kind that makes you pause and hold your breath. Then the strike, bright and hard. Thunder rolls after, the sound of a god in pursuit. And then rain, sheets of it. The strike opens the way, the water follows. Crops drink, rivers swell. Fields that cracked in heat soften and take seed. What this means is simple. The sky's justice feeds the earth. Think of a heartbeat: systole, diastole tighten, release. The world breathes between strike and surge. When Perun contracts the order, the bolt lands. When Veles loosens it, waters spread and wealth moves. Neither can stop for long. If the heart holds its squeeze, life starves. If it never tightens, form dissolves. The chase keeps the rhythm. You can feel the cycle across the year. There is a dry spell when Veles hold back the flow, keeping cattle and riches close in the deep. Then storms build, bolts lash the hills, the lock breaks, rain runs free. Sometimes it floods, a sign the chase ran hot and the gates swung wide. Afterward, grass rises, grain heads, and orchards swell. Then slowly, the hold returns. Heat hardens. Waters pull back into banks and wells. The year resets its breath. This hunt is not just about weather, it scales. In fields, it writes the sowing and the harvest. In a life, it writes the code of promise and payment. In the fate of souls, it marks the path between the village and the quiet below, the thresholds where the living address the dead and ask the deep to release luck for another year. Order claims what belongs above. Craft protects what belongs below. The border is always in play. When you listen for this pattern, stories stop floating and start to click. A tale where a serpent hoards wealth at the foot of a tree points to Veles. A hero who calls the sky and swings a hammer of sound works as a Perun face. Even when names change by town or century, the tasks line up. Lightning pursues theft. Rain follows justice. Growth follows rain. You can test it in rites. A village lights a fire when heat is rising, then leaps the flame to tame it. They plunge into water right after, joining both forces so the field does not scorch or drown. The script is plain once you hold the key. Tighten, release, bolt, rainlock, unlock. The world needs the full cycle to stay whole. Across the seasons, each run leaves marks. Oaks scarred by strikes, stones black where bolts met ground, spring swollen after a hard chase. Herds move to higher pasture when the air dries, then driven down when grass thickens after storms. People set their work to the same beat, turn soil before the strikes, sow when the waters open, reap as the hold returns, lay the dead when the deep is listening. So the master key is a duel with rules. It explains why thunder carries a charge of law. It explains why wealth sleeps near roots and must be coaxed into the light. It explains why a flood can feel like a ransom paid late. Follow the chase and you can read a ritual, a festival, even a charm on a threshold. Find the theft, the bolt, the surge, and you decode the myth. Now we anchor that duel to the world tree that binds the realms. Why do birds sit at the crown and serpents coil at the roots in Slavic art? Because the world stands like a living tree, and every creature knows its branch. Once we set that image in place, the odd pieces stop drifting. They take their seats. In the old stories, the cosmos splits into 3 linked realms. Nav is the deep, underworld, storehouse, the quiet where the dead and the hordes rest. Yav is the daylit world of people, fields, and deals, the work we do with our hands. Prav is the high rule, the standard of law that tells each thing where it belongs and how far it can go. Think of Prav as the measure, Yav as the scene, and Nav as the vault. Without that map, a myth feels like loose keys in a drawer. With the tree, you know which lock each one fits. The crown holds the bright and the lawful. The trunk carries the press of life. The roots keep what is hidden and potent. Roles sort by level, and paths run straight. At the top, birds ride the wind and keep clean company with the sun. They're not just animals. They stand for the blessed dead and for upright fates that rise. Above them is the clear sky where order speaks in storm. At the bottom, serpents thread the damp and curl around chests of wealth. They mark the arts of depth, cunning, hoarding, and the slow strength of soil. In the middle, we keep to the trunk. We build, sow, wed, and judge. We take messages up and down. Perun works from the crown and the storm belt that skirts it. He guards the line, sets the bounds, and strikes when the line breaks. Veles keeps the storehouses in Nav and watches the herds that feed our luck. He guides souls on their way under and loans wealth that must come back with interest. When the chase begins, we feel it along the trunk as weather and fate. For a concrete marker, we can point to a tall four-sided idol with stacked scenes. Its tiers show a top for high powers, a band of human right in the center, and a load-bearing figure below that presses up the whole. Each face looks to a cardinal side, like a shrine held in place by the four winds. Many multi-headed images echo that same idea. Not a crowd, but one axis seen from every quarter. Prav lives at the crown but reaches down the trunk. It is not just law on paper. It is the measure that keeps time and gives rain its rightful turn. When the duel between Perun and Veles runs hot, it is Prav that gets knocked off balance and set right again. A theft below strains the line. A strike above restores it. The year is the ledger where that balance is written and erased and written again. Rites trace this axis step by step. Villages move sunwise around fields and icons, turning with the course of the day. Fires lift heat upward, waters cool and draw downward. People cross thresholds, pause, and greet the hidden as they pass. When they climb a hill to light a bonfire, they lean into the crown's side. When they carry food to a grave mound or leave bread near a root, they speak with the deep. Birds at the top tell us where the upright go and what a good end looks like. Serpents at the root remind us that wealth grows in shade and must be asked for, not grabbed bees in the middle, often placed with humans. Hint at the order we can build when we work true to the hive and the field. Each creature is a signpost. Each signpost points to a level and a function. Once we hold this axis, any name can be tested by position and job. A thunder lord belongs in crown and cloud. A wealth keeper in snake form holds to the roots. A guardian of mothers and moist earth binds the trunk to both ends. A wind power looks outward from the upper branches. A fate-bringing trio fits the rules of Prav when they visit the cradle. The labels can shift by river or ridge. The work does not. The year circles the tree like a slow dance. Winter leans heavy on the roots as the dead sit close. Spring pulls sap up the trunk. Midsummer sparks at the crown. Harvest returns gifts to the deep, so the vault will open again. Each rite stamps a footstep at a level, and taken together, they retell the duel and the truce. That's why festivals use both flame and stream, why processions turn rightward, why masks move between village edge and center. What this means is clear for us. We can place any being by asking two things. Where on the tree does it stand, and what job does it do for the cycle? Do that, and the maze resolves. You don't need a single book of doctrine when you have a working map. With the axis set, we meet the household heart that grounds the cycle, the hand that keeps the loom tight and the soil ready. In a storm of gods, who keeps the home warm and the fields breathing? We look for the steady hand, the one that turns chaos into bread and blankets. That is where Mokosh stands, close to the ground, close to the loom, close to the damp that wakes seed and skin. In the old stories, Mokosh carries earth fertility and the work of the house. She sits with spinning and weaving, with the wetness that makes soil live, with harvest and stored grain. You can picture hands that twist flax into thread and thread into cloth. Her sphere is modest on the surface, but it touches every life. Food, cloth, cradle, and well. The word moist trails her, the way dew trails dawn. So where does she stand when the sky and the serpent fight? Not as a bystander, she mediates. Rain comes down with Perun's strike. Riches and waters rise from Veles' store. Mokosh receives both. The loam takes the drop. The seed breaks. Growth answers. She makes the truce useful. Without her, the duel is noise. With her, it becomes bread and swaddling. Think of her as the hinge on a door. The frame is the tree. The swing is the chase. The hinge holds both and lets the world move. When rain meets soil, Mokosh is the consent. When law meets luck, she is the craft that turns it into daily goods. She does not swing a bolt or coil like a snake. She binds, moistens, and sustains. Household rights fall at her feet. Women mark Fridays with tasks tied to thread and water. Spindles rest or turn on chosen days to keep favor. Wells get tended, thresholds swept, loaves crossed before baking. Sowing calls for a quiet prayer. Birth calls for a cloth tied and loosened in the right order, so labor flows. The threshold, door, hearth, and bed belongs to her care, because that is where the outside meets the inside. Written memory fixes her in the high roster. We hear she stood in the old pantheon, named among core powers. That tells us her work was not small. It was public, not only private, and it had staying power. People kept her rites long after new altars rose, often with the lower clergy nearby, which tells us the line between old and new ran through the village, not around it. In the layered faith that followed, her traits found a new face. Her link with moisture, earth, and the care of women matched the figure of the Virgin in the new frame that kept the maternal function in plain sight. The calendar even set a day that echoed her, and in some places it leaned toward a saint known for women's work and Friday observance. The old thread ran under the new weave. Spinning and weaving do more than fill time. They act as a quiet law. Thread must be even. Warp and weft must cross just so. A flawed pass weakens the cloth. That is a model of prav, the high measure Mokosh's arts teach it by touch. You learn how rules hold life together by making fabric that won't tear in the wash. Fate itself shows up as a spun line. Keep it clean, keep it taut. Don't tangle what feeds you. What this means for us is that care is not soft. It is structural. The ethics of care, mend, moisten, measure, and make, hold households the way cosmic law holds a realm. You don't see it until it fails. A dry field cracks. A loose weave rips. A neglected threshold lets in harm. Mokosh's rites train attention. They teach you to keep the seam tight and the bucket sound. Her image bridges the cosmic and the common. When storms break, she gets the first benefit as water meets soil. When the deep closes, she keeps what was gained by drying and storing grain jars. Root cellars, cloth sacks. This is myth you can touch. You hold it in a loaf, a shawl, a cup. You can track it in how a village moves through the year. Sow with care, reap with thanks. Rest the spindle on set days and guard the well. For example, when her traits shade into the Virgin Mary in folk practice, the result is simple and practical. Processions still bless wells. Women still mark a Friday with cloth and prayer. The name shifts, but the job remains: protect, moisten, and bind. The field feels it. The cradle feels it. The house breathes easier. So we stop treating her as a side figure. She is the living hinge of the cycle, the one who turns storm and horde into life you can eat and wear. She keeps the peace between crown and root by making the meeting fertile rather than raw. If you follow only the bolt and the serpent, you miss the point. Follow the thread from the hearth to the sun. Who gives the light that ripens the grain? If Perun is the storm, who is the steady brightness that feeds the year? We need the light that does not shout, the glow that keeps grain sweet and mornings livable. That's where the Skyfire Suite takes its place, and two names carry the work: Domovoi and Svarog. In the old stories, Domovoi stands as the giver tied to the sun's force. Warmth, light, and the daily rise that pulls sap and spirit upward belong to him. His name points to giving, and his job is to send out blessings: heat for ripening, shine for growth, and the luck that rides with clear skies. The sun's path draws his line across the year. Svarog holds the other half of the firecraft. He is forge and flame, the smith's mind made cosmic. Where Domovoi pours light, Svarog shapes heat into order. Tools, rules, and right measure come from his fire. Think less of raw blaze and more of tempered iron, where heat and hammer set a form that can work and last. So how do they fit without pushing Perun off the high seat? We sort by function, not volume. Perun enforces. He draws the boundary and strikes when it is crossed. Domovoi gives. He keeps the world fed and lit. Svarog makes. He sets the pattern and the gear that keep time and labor straight. Three powers in one sky, each with a clean task. You can feel the layers and how the year moves. Perun's bolts break the lock so waters flow. Domovoi rides that opening, turning free rain into swelling fruit. Svarog frames the work around it. Plows set before sowing, sickles set before reaping, and the quiet law that says when each task should start and stop. Enforcement, abundance, craft. They stack rather than clash. What this shows is that sun and forge live on timing. The solar arc is not only light, it is a work plan. Spring sowing needs soft soil and shy warmth. Midsummer needs steady blaze, not storm scorch. Autumn needs a gentle fade that hardens grain. In step, the forge marks out labor. Early in the season, you mend tools. In the thick of it, you sharpen and fix. After the cut, you store and count. Fire writes rules you can hold. For example, some readings of a tall tiered idol place Domovoi among the upper powers. His position near the crown fits a sun force that rules by steady giving. The same stacked design, with a craftsman logic to its tiers, matches Svarog's sense of order. A world that can be built, kept, and repaired. The four-way gaze of such carvings also suits a sky that turns and shines on each quarter in its time. Here's the catch, and it's key. Gifts only matter when the path is open. Sun warms, but parched furrows refuse it. Law holds, but without flow it becomes a clamp. So their best work rides the rhythm we already learned. When Perun loosens Veles' hoard and the waters come, Domovoi's light feeds the freed fields, and Svarog's rules keep that gain from spilling away. When the lock tightens again, their roles shift to storage and repair, banking heat and law for the next turn. Think of them as a team at one table. Perun keeps the border clean, Domovoi fills the bowls, Svarog sets the tools and the calendar, then tends the hearth so the fire does not die at night. If one tries to do all jobs, the system drags. If each stays in lane, the year hums. This is not crowd noise, it is layered work. Across the cycle, we watch the sun's mood change low and pale in winter, bright and long in summer, slant and kind in harvest. Those changes tell farmers when to move, and the forge answers each shift. New blades at planting, quick fixes in high season, hinges, locks, and staves as days grow short. The sky becomes a manual, fire becomes a workshop. When you hear old lines that call Domovoi a giver, you can test it in your head. What gets given? Heat that swells grain heads, light that sets bees on the wing, days that stretch so labor can finish before dark. When you hear that Svarog is a smith, ask what gets made. Not only iron, boundaries, oaths, tools that bind energy into work. A field is a machine, a village is an engine. Svarog is the mechanic and the engineer. This reading also helps when names blur. A local sun power taking honors fits the Domovoi job. A cult of sacred fire and a keeper of smiths points to Svarog's isle. If a tale gives a storm hammer to a sun god, you can peel it back and sort the parts. Who enforces, who gives, who shapes the axis, holds the answer. What this means is simple and useful. We can parse high gods by function around the tree. Storm guards the crown and keeps the law sharp. Sun pours steady power into the branches. Forge fixes the joints so nothing snaps under the load. Storm, sun, fire. They harmonize when the waters are set free. Let's step into the places where people met these powers. Why were the gods' faces often hidden from common eyes? Because access was part of the rite. Some things you met through distance. Temples, continae, stood on raised ground or near river joins, built of wood with an inner room where the statue sat. Walled yards or fort sites wrapped them, and you didn't stroll in on a whim. The god had a house, and houses have doors. Clan groups held specific shrines, and each kept its own banquets tied to ancestor gods. You can hear the rule in the layout. Front space for the people, inner cell for the image, and a threshold that only ritual hands could cross. The Volkvi guarded that threshold. They were the ritual specialists, the ones who knew how to open the door and when to shut it. They kept the pace of sacrifice, read lots, set the day, and handled the statue. In some places, several continae sat in one fort, each with its own god room. Access was managed, timed, and marked. The form taught respect. The distance taught awe. But secrecy can split a town. If only a few step close, how does everyone feel part of the bond? This is where the public side comes in. Community rites carried belonging out to the tables, and the green banquets, brachina and slava, drew people into a circle. Offerings moved from altar to feast, from God's house back to the clan yard. Stories were told there, not behind the cell door. Prayers were said out loud, cups passed, and the head of a kin group called the names that mattered. Those meals did real work. They linked the living to the dead and set the year's tone. Shared food made the pact feel like home, not just a rule. With Christianization, patron saints stepped in where ancestor gods sat before, but the form stayed strong. People still met, blessed bread, and tied their house to a higher friend. That tells us the feast is not an extra. It is the social engine of the rite. Now set those rites against the sky's own clock. Seasonal festivals match solstices and equinoxes. The year's hinge points were not random. They lined up with the turn of light and the breath of the fields, echoes of the duel we've been tracking, and the sweep of the tree. At winter rites, you greet the low sun and guard the seed. At spring's rise, you soften the soil's lock. At midsummer, power peaks and needs cooling. At harvest, you pay the deep so it will open again when frost ends. For example, look at midsummer. Fire and water share the stage. You set bonfires, leap flames, and then go to the river or lake to bathe. Effigies appear. Some burn, some drown, some float downstream. The acts show tension and release. Flame tightens, water loosens. When burning wheels of straw roll down into rivers, you can feel the script. Heat finds its measure, and the flood carries off the excess. The switch of seasonal spirits rides on those gestures, and the field reads the sign. Control of idols and open feasts worked like two hands. One hand held authority near the statue. The other spread kinship across the benches. The first kept doctrine sharp and the calendar clean. The second turned belief into habit and memory. The cell door didn't make the gods scarce. It made the moment weighty. The table didn't flatten the sacred. It gave it legs and carried it through the village. Think of it as a bellows. The inner cell compresses meaning. The feast releases it into the crowd. Tighten, release. The same rhythm we hear in storm and rain turns up in worship. When the Volkvi shut the doors and speak the words, pressure builds. When the doors open and the meat is shared, the power moves into hands and bellies. No one needs to see the statue's face to feel part of the pact. They feel it in the taste of salt, the warmth of a cup, the chorus of a toasting call. Over time, this rhythm becomes design, not accident. The gap between sacred center and village life teaches pace. You don't stand in the sanctum each day. You meet it at set times, then carry the charge in small rites. House marks, field rounds, and processions that trace the sunwise turn around fields and icons. The two zones, hidden idol, public feast, keep a balance of awe and ease. One preserves mystery, the other builds trust. What this shows is why sources note both secrecy and open joy. The system needed both. Concentrated power kept the myth from dissolving into noise. Shared meals kept it from freezing into a closed club. People stood at the line, watched the image emerge, then turned to one another and made the myth their own, with bread, song, and a steady walk along the village edge. So the hidden icon and the loud banquet are not opposites. They are partners staging one story. The station center tunes the signal, the feast carries the song. Now see how the seasons themselves speak the duel in plain gestures. What if each festival is a move in a cosmic game? Not a board with squares, but a loop of days where each step pushes the balance one way, then the other. If we treat the calendar as the rule book, the pieces start to move on their own start at winter rites, often called koleda. The sun sits low, the ground holds tight, and we face the long dark. Fires rise as beacons. People gather, share food, and carry the light from house to house. The act is simple but pointed. Keep the spark alive while the world rests. Then spring breaks the lock. Snow loosens, water runs, and the thaw makes space for the first work. By midsummer, kupala, heat and growth peak. The field is heavy with promise and risk. After that crest, harvest comes, when cutting and storing meat. Later, ancestor days open the door to the quiet below. Each node does a clear job. How do these local customs tie into one master story? We look for the chase we learned before. Perun's strikes and Veles' hordes write weather and wealth as two pulls on the same rope. When spring opens, it feels like a win for the high places. When heat swells and rivers threaten, the deep presses back. The year walks that line. At Koleda, fire means more than warmth. It marks a pact to carry order through the lean stretch. The flames clean and bless. They center the group. They give a place for tales and vows. In spring, water leads, the land drinks. Wells get thanks. The first furrows show the trunk waking. At Kupala, both elements meet in full voice. People leap over flames to tame heat. They go to rivers and lakes to cool it. The motions answer a real need. Hold blaze and flood in balance so the field doesn't scorch or drown. The research we have points out how fire at Koleda and Kupala works as purification, as a sign of strength, and as a source of healing and protection. Bonfires pull the village into one circle. They chase darkness and promise longer days. The ritual aim is clear: draw on fire's power for safety and good growth. You can hear the same logic in the chase. Heat alone is not the goal. Heat under measure is. Ancestor days bring Nav close. The living carry food and kind words to the dead, often with a simple table or a visit to mounds. This is not morbid. It keeps the bond with those who went under and asks the deep to spare luck for the next round. In harvest season, offerings return a portion of gain to the roots. Grain, bread, or a first cut is set aside. It pays the vault so that closed doors will open when spring knocks again. Give back so you can ask again. That is the underworld's math. For structure, watch how people move. Directional processions matter. Villages turn sunwise around fields and icons. The route mirrors the sky's path, and the world tree's ring, multi-headed idols with faces to the four quarters, fit this motion. Each pass greets a side, a wind, a duty. The circle isn't a stroll. It resets the map. You can read the festivals as a pulse. Tighten, loosen, tighten again. Winter tightens the code. Stay close, guard the spark, measure bread. Spring loosens. Water runs, seeds go in, the line softens. Midsummer tightens. Heat peaks, so law must check it. Harvest loosens. Store and share. Pay the deep. Ease the tension. Each turn shifts the dial of Prav, not to erase it, but to keep it responsive. Look at the craft built into these rites. Fire jumping isn't random fun. It trains bodies to meet heat without fear and to come away marked but safe. River rites teach respect for depth and current. You touch both and learn their edge. When a wheel of straw burns and rolls to water, it draws a clear picture. Energy should move, not sit. When it meets its match, it cools and flows where it can help rather than harm. Koleda's songs hold the pledge of care. Kupala's dances release and test it. Harvest's measured cuts bring the promise to ground. Ancestor days fold memory back into the soil. The loop makes sense when we place each act on the axis. Crown, trunk, root, storm, sun, storehouse. You don't need one uniform name for each rite to see how it slots into the chase. What this shows is that the calendar is not scattered superstition. It is a readable script. If you stand at any festival and ask which force is tightened and which is loosed, you can place it in the story. Is the fire treated like a tool under control? Is the water invited to cool what runs hot? Are the dead being courted to keep gifts flowing? Every answer gives you the chapter you're in. Once you test a few, the pattern becomes easy to track. You can walk a year and hear the dual shift. You can tell when the bolt is due and when the deep will call for its fee. Festivals turn into lines in a poem rather than a bag of quirks. And then the next question rises on its own. But what happened when saints walked onto this stage? Why does a thunderous prophet arrive when storms break over the fields? We've seen the duel play out in sky and soil. Now watch new names step into the old timing. A saint rides when cloud towers, a mother's icon comes forward when seeds need soft hands. Green banners lift when fields wake. The stage changes. The cues don't. In the old stories, gods held those jobs under Christian rule. Saints inherit them. You see the transfer by season and task. The Thunder Road belongs to a prophet who calls fire from the sky, and people ask him for rain or for safety from strikes. The mantle of earth care and moisture leans toward the virgin, who shelters wells, homes, and mothers. Warrior and green rites settle on figures tied to spring charge, and field guard roles move, but the schedule holds. So is this replacement or translation? The answer sits in the middle. Names change, yet the work continues. The people keep the rhythm that feeds them. The church lets key days stand and gives them new frames. The pact shifts from grove to nave, but the clock still ticks. Churches adopt motifs that speak to both layers at once. You can see solar discs and radiant patterns echo the path of light across the year. Vine and leaf run through borders like a living calendar. Carvings and textiles borrow old shapes without saying old names. The route of a procession traces the same ring around field and well, just with icons and banners instead of tall posts or carved heads. What this shows is the strength of motif and timing. The old script sneaks into the new book through form. Keep the day, keep the path, keep the gesture. The story survives even when the cast switches. Syncretism is the word for this blend. It let people obey new rules while staying inside the old rhythm. A village could attend liturgy and still keep the field round. They could bless a river on a saint's feast and still cool the summer heat the way their grandparents did. The rites gained new words, but the body remembered. For example, processions ran with the weather. When clouds built, you brought out the thunderous prophet's icon and circled sunwise, asking for what the field needed. Enough rain, not ruin. At sowing, a saint tied to spring and green walked the edge of land with you. The steps matched the sowing schedule. The same stops, the same turns, the same thresholds. The mythic clock kept time. Folk prayers say the quiet part out loud. They use biblical lines but ask for rain, health, and fertility. They name saints, then talk to wells, bees, cows, orchards, and newborns. The requests track the cycle we know. Rain at the right hour, a safe bolt that drives off rot, milk that does not sour, grain that fills and holds. Words knit heaven and furrow in one breath. Think of it as a mask change, not a plot twist. The roles persist. The faces swap. Behind stained glass, the invisible war keeps playing. The prophet's cloudfire is the old bolt with a new name. The mother's cloak still moistens and guards. The spring rider still wakes the green and cuts what creeps. You can feel the chase in the hymn's cadence and the way candles meet water at set marks of the year. This makes sense when we hold the axis: crown, trunk, root. The church anchors the crown with holy days that speak of light and law. The trunk stays busy with house rites in saintly costume, bread marks, well garlands, cradle charms. The root keeps its fee on ancestor days wrapped in church language. The border blurs, but the work divides the same way. Icons themselves tell the tale. Radiant halos, starbursts, and golden fields echo sun-force robes in earth colors, and blue speak of moisture and mercy. Wheat, vine, and lily appear at the months that need them. Even when no one names a thunder god or a field mother, you can read who is on stage by season and symbol. When you learn to read the timing, you stop seeing a clean swap. You see a braid. Winter feasts hold fire against dark. Spring rites touch water and seed. Midsummer pairs flame, and river harvest pays the deep. Each point calls a saint who fits the job. Each job keeps the lands packed alive. The payoff is practical. If you walk into a village feast and ask which saint is carried and why this day, you can place the move in the old game: is the sky tight or loose? Which way is the water going? What needs guarding or freeing? The answers point to the same duel we traced, still there, now dressed in robes and hymns. So saints wear old crowns without breaking the code. They let a new creed stand while fields keep breathing. We gain a way to read across layers, to see one rhythm through two scripts. That code also lives in the forest witch and the epic heroes. Why does a hut with chicken legs know the path between life and death? Because in the old stories, that hut stands on the scene, halfway between the field we know and the deep we fear. It turns when asked. It opens when paid. It keeps the key to the road that runs up and down the world tree. We meet Baba Yaga there, liminal, sharp, and entirely at home at thresholds. She tests, bargains, and sets prices that feel harsh but fair by a deeper rule. You don't stroll past her porch. You ask. You prove. You pay in work, in courage, or in clean answers. Crossers learn that the middle line is not a free lane. It has a keeper. So is she a villain, a helper, or both? She is the border itself. If you break measure, she bites. If you walk right, she hands you what you need. Her stove holds bones because the line hurts the careless. Her cupboard holds gifts because the line rewards the wise. The tails refuse to flatten her, and that refusal teaches us how thresholds really work. Her hut spins, and that matters. It turns like the sun's path, sunwise, law-bound, measured. Heroes must speak the right phrase or make the right sign to stop the spin. That pause is a ritual break, a way of asking Prav, the high rule, to settle over the meeting. Only then can anyone ask for fire, water, or a tool from below. Think of it as a toll gate that checks your papers, not a trap that feeds on travelers. The trials she sets mirror that high law: sort seeds by dawn, carry water in a sieve, tend a stove that wants both ash and air. Each task sounds like nonsense until you realize it encodes the world's rule: measure, balance, sequence. If you skip steps, the sieve leaks and the oven burns. If you work in the right order, even the impossible becomes doable. The right teaches the rule by hand. When the threshold is honored, rewards appear from the other side: fire that does not scorch, water that finds its channel, a comb, a towel, a thread, plain things that become passage when used at the exact moment. What this means is that boons are not free gifts. They are licenses to wield forces from Nav in Yav without breaking Prav. Use them wrong, and the border snaps back. Epic figures in these tales often carry echoes of the higher duel. The ones who call for sky law and still know how to bargain with depth walk the middle like experts. They can face a serpent's horde with craft and then raise a hand to the crown for justice. In one quest, they embody both Perun's clean strike and Veles' sly path, held in a single body under time pressure. That balance is the trick, and Baba Yaga checks for it. When public cults fade, folktales hold the moral geometry. You can feel the tree's levels in the set and props. Top is bright law, middle is work, bottom is wealth and bones. The hut's legs lift the root zone into view without making it safe. The oven is a pocket underworld. The forest is the edge where maps stop. The story lets you walk there with rules that still remember the old axis. The forest turns into a classroom. Paths fork like choices in a right. Stray left, you meet teeth. Keep sunwise, you find guidance. Mushrooms mark damp and depth. Bird calls mark the crown's eye. You learn to read signs and keep measure as you go. No priest stands by, yet the logic is strict. Even the famous "don't look back" recurs at the line between worlds. The lesson is not fear, it is traction. Pause and think of the hut as a customs post. You present who you are, declare what you carry, and accept limits on what may pass. The analogy holds. It keeps the living from smuggling death into the village and stops the dead from walking out without cause. Baba Yaga enforces that flow, sometimes with a grin, often with a test, always with a sense that the world should keep its balance. Her threats are not random cruelty. They tune the traveler. Bone fences warn that the border has a cost. Skulls with eyes light the yard so no one blunders through at night. The broom sweeps tracks to keep the line clear. The mortar and pestle track the sky's arc in small household motion. Nothing is grand. Everything is precise. For example, when a hero wins fire from her, the tale sets strict terms carry it in a skull. Do not drop it on dry brush. Do not sleep with it near straw. The boon both helps and judges. It asks if you can hold heat under law. That is Perun's lesson, channeled through a witch who knows the fees the root will demand if you fail. So we stop treating Baba Yaga as noise. She is the gatekeeper of the tree's midline. She stands where Yav meets Nav and asks if you deserve to cross. When you answer well, the path opens and the gift fits your hand. When you falter, she shows teeth, and even that is a lesson. With the map clear, we can now read the scattered pantheon as one story that holds its shape no matter which name leads the line. What changes when we hold the key while looking at every god and rite? We stop chasing names and start reading jobs. The map snaps into focus. Each figure takes a seat on the tree, links to the duel, and steps on stage at the right time of year. The signal gets clear enough that you can hear it under local accents and swapped titles. So let's reframe the pantheon through function and place. Perun holds the crown and guards the line of law. Veles stays below, with herds, treasure, and the road of souls. Between them, the trunk carries the work of fields, homes, and deals. Once we accept that layout, we can sort the cast without fuss. We ask where a being stands, what it does, and when it moves. The answers arrange themselves. Still, some names feel random or even at odds with each other. That fear comes from treating labels like fixed brands. In the old stories, names travel, but jobs repeat. The same role wears many masks across regions. That's not chaos. It's a code that lets one structure fit many places. Take winds. Strybog fits the upper bands, stirring weather and carrying change across the branches. He moves between Perun's law and Dajbog's light, pushing clouds, cooling heat, and driving storm lines where they need to go. Winds sit high, but not at the crown. They serve the order above by moving it through the middle sky. You feel his work when the air shifts before rain or clears after thunder. Fate and birth belong to the Rozhanitsi, those who measure a child's thread. They visit cradles, set spans, and tie the new life to Prav. Their station is near the crown's law, but working in the trunk, where cloth, kin, and promise live in that spot, they act like quiet judges, binding households to the high rule through the soft act of naming and blessing. Directional mediators stand at the horizon. Svetovid and Triglav show faces to the quarters, a sign that they keep watch where sky meets land. 4 faces speak to seasons and winds. 3 heads speak to crown, trunk, and root held in one. They do not replace the dual. They align it. When a shrine lifts such an image, the village gains a compass that spreads the axis into daily space. You can walk around it and feel the world click into 4 steady turns, like Chobo. Veles holds shape-shifting wealth. Serpents and dragons under roots are his signs. He guards cattle as living treasure and keeps the store where gold, honey, and memories settle. When a tale shows a hoard under water or a beast coiled around a chest, we're in his house. His art is craft, oath, and deal. His danger is hoarding past measure. His boon is release when paid with right and respect. Above, Perun sits where storm sets law. He speaks in thunder and writes with lightning. Oaks and heights mark his path. When things slip out of place, stolen cattle, a sky theft of souls, he hunts, the bolt bites, the lock breaks, and rain follows, which brings us back to the fields. His justice feeds the earth. Then the earth must answer with order of its own. Multi-headed idols tell us how to read this without fretting over names, several faces, one pillar, several directions, one axis. Function outranks variation. The image says, this is a world that looks many ways but stands on one stem. You can trust the job more than the label. Now, apply the method. A local storm god with a hammer or spear. Slot as a Perun face, working the crown's task in regional colors. A wealth serpent, coiled near springs or roots. That's a Veles face, guarding the deep until the right opens the vault. A mother of moisture who blesses wells and cloth. A Mokosh face, binding trunk to crown and root with care and skill. The faces change, the work does not. This flexible coding explains why synonyms multiply by river and ridge. One town names a wind lord and swears he brings luck. Another calls the same gust by a neighbor's title. The jobs match even when the vowels don't. You keep structure and still honor local speech. It's like learning a tune that survives new instruments. The melody holds. Once you read this way, the scattered puzzle becomes a machine with meshing gears. Storm enforces sun gives, forge shapes, earth mothers bind, winds carry, fate measures, depth stores and ransoms, rites time the flow, festivals mark the stress points, the axis bears the load. What this means is practical. You can pick up any fragment, a charm, a festival note, a carved head, and place it fast. Ask the two questions. Where on the tree does it stand? And which side of the duel does it serve just now? The fragment will tell you if you listen for level and job. Use this as your field kit. Hold the Perun Veles polarity and the world tree in mind, and the code comes into view. The more pieces you sort, the easier it gets. Soon you won't need a master list. You'll have a method that travels. Hold that method. Let's close with what this changes for how we tell stories. Slavic myth isn't a broken archive. It's a living code where one chase orders, sky, soil, and soul. Perun tightens, Veles loosens. The world keeps rhythm when we read both moves on the tree use this key. Ask any tale two things. Where are Perun and Veles, and on which branch does it unfold? Crown, trunk, or root? The answer will place the right, the hero, and the cost. Think of it as a compass you can carry into any story. Try weaving this motif into your next story and tell me what you discover. Where does the bolt land and what flows after?